Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Today I am talking about something I wanted to cover for a while, and honestly, this has probably been one of the biggest questions in my brain for a long time now, and not just because of my work here on YouTube as a content creator or whatever else you'd like to call me, YouTuber, video essayist, but also because of the other endeavors in my life currently, all of which surround this idea of being an artist. And I'm not gonna even try to go into defining what that is in our current generation, because that is honestly just part of the question. And the part of the question is it worth being an artist in 2022? Being an artist in the sense of all encompassing, all forms of art like music, film, theater, literature, even like writing, YouTube, all of which I have some sort of dabble in. And quite honestly, I don't really know if I can see myself going down a route that isn't creative, or at least somehow fueled by all the things that inspire me in my works of art. And right now I'm doing several things besides just YouTube. And it's for me, it's a bit of a weird case because I think a lot of people, YouTube is kind of like, it becomes their passion, right? It becomes like their side gig. I was about to say side who, but that's not the right word. Can you tell I'm slightly unhinged here? It is a holiday in Korea, and so I went out with some people last night, had some of that nightlife, Korean nightlife, which is great. We went to, it was supposed to go to an LP bar, but it wasn't actually an LP bar, like a record player bar. We didn't really get to play any records. It was false advertising. Anyways, back on subject. This question of is it worth being an artist in this current generation or this current time is something that I have been wrestling with a lot, and it's a theme that I wrestle with in my current project, the novel that I am writing. It is not the autobiographical one. It is a bit more of a like dystopian romance. Think like Never Let Me Go by Ishiguro, writer that I love, whose name I forget sometimes. So think more in that sort of genre, like set in this sort of alternate reality, futuristic world, but very focused on relationships and the human psyche, really what it means to be human, but also what it means to be an artist in the world where art is quote unquote dying. And I'm not gonna go as far as to say that I think art is dying, or that I think that the things we see today are not art. I used to be down that path where I was only hardcore fan of like old classic music, like classic rock. I always say 70s, 80s music is the best. I still kind of think that's true. I don't know, like lyrically, musically, just objectively, I used to just think that era was the best time of music. But now I'm really enjoying a lot of other contemporary music as well. There's a lot of artists that are still alive today that I do think are really gifted and put out really great work out there. But it's not like every day I find those kinds of artists. And I'm in love with musicals. I'm currently practicing for a show in February. We are putting on a Korean version of Les Mis. And I've just been kind of like obsessing over the musical genre, like watching musical actors, learning new songs, learning about new musicals, listening to the soundtracks like every day. I'm really into stuff like Hadestown, which has got a very jazzy kind of vibe. And I think I really like the sort of either or lately with Mr. Lin-Manuel Miranda's genius rap hip hop mixed genre, this fusion of music that a lot of like more traditional musical lovers in Korea don't really enjoy that kind of style, but I just like when music is innovative. I think I just like when art is innovative in general. So I do have a lot of positive thoughts about modern art in our current day and age. I also have a lot of TV shows and films that I've enjoyed recently. There's a Korean film that I really enjoyed called 헤어질 결심, The Decision to Leave. It was a great Korean film. I honestly might just do a short video on Korean movies that I love. And TV shows. What's a TV show that I've liked recently? There are definitely some. I'm trying to find one that I enjoyed for the quality and not just for pure entertainment value, but that's another question we can discuss later. And I will say books have been the hardest for me to find. Recently written, like within the last few years, that I truly enjoyed. I would say the most ones I've enjoyed are, again, another Ishiguro, his most recent Clara and the Sun, and Saint X, which I have not finished yet, but the opening it just pulls you right in from the beginning. kidding. But yeah, so I've had my doubts about contemporary art, as well as my doubt for myself. Can I really navigate this world as an artist? Can I survive just financially, economically? Is it viable? And generally, the answer is no, not really. And I'll get to that. And getting back to the whole YouTube on the side thing, wow, I went on such a long tangent there, as I always do. For me, YouTube is not really a side thing, but it's not because I'm the most passionate about it. It's because out of all of my artistic endeavors, writing a novel, musicals, YouTube is the most profitable. It's the one that will actually bring me an income, sad to say or not. I was gonna say sadly or not. I think it was supposed to be like believe it or not, but anyways. And yet even the money I get from YouTube, I'm gonna be completely honest with you guys, it's not enough for a living. Of course, that has to do with, number of views and just my overall popularity in general, which is honestly, I've been a bit of a plateau recently, and it's made me really rethink about the future of this channel, where it's going to go. I have been very tempted to kind of just move over to a 9-to-5 job, just to have that financial stability and to be able to support the things that I do. Except if I do that, I will definitely be putting YouTube on the back burner, because it was never really on the front burner to begin with. It was just on the front burner because it brought income. But if I can somehow make more income, and when I say more income, I just mean like I want enough pay for the amount of time investment that I put in. But yeah, so there was a very high possibility that I would put away this YouTube business for a while, or at least, I don't know, go to making videos like once a month maybe, because I've been so focused on the two other things I mentioned, musicals and my book. Honestly, I do think those are much more closer to like my heart, my passions, and is where areas where I do really want to improve and succeed in. YouTube, it's nice. It's being a creator, it's weird. It makes me feel like an artist, but at the same time makes me feel like a business person, and I'm not very good at the business side, to be quite honest. In this day and age, as an artist, you just have to be good at the business side in some form or another. You're either selling yourself or you're selling your work. In this case, I'm doing a bit of both, and that's where today's text comes in. I actually wasn't planning to necessarily include a text. It was just going to be a bit of a rant from me, but I know you guys love my research-based video essays, and it's weird to even call myself that after I've seen, no, I'm gonna mention that later. Focus. But then I ran into this text that I actually feel like had the perfect message or the perfect themes for me to wrestle with in this video, and it's called The Conspiracy of Art by Baudrillard. And I've mentioned Baudrillard in the past on this channel, if you remember. Which video was it? It was actually the Simulacra video where I talked about social media, and I didn't want to repeat an author from before that I've already mentioned on my channel. But I just love this guy. I love his writing, and it's provocative, thought-provoking. Wow, such vague general terms, but it was true, and I just like the kinds of questions and concepts he grapples with. First saw the title, like I didn't even read the text, I just saw the title and I was like, okay, this is perfect. I don't even know what this is about, but I know that it's gonna be perfect for my video. And then I actually read it, and it's quite a short essay actually, so I am going to go through it bit by bit, and I am gonna skip a few of the parts in the beginning where it compares art to, I just don't want to mention the subject because of like censorship issues. I don't want to deal with any of that, so I'm not going to, but I'll skip right to the kind of meat of it, where it talks about what I interpret it to be this critique of contemporary art. Now, he is writing from the 1990s, so his view of contemporary art is obviously a lot different from ours maybe, but it is still the beginning of the rise of what we know to be like modern or postmodern art. He talks a little bit about Warhol. Basically, the summary of it, like it's a gist of what I got and what I think will be applicable to us, is this idea that contemporary art recycles this idea of what he calls banality or mundaneness. Basically, let me just try to, I want to get back into the habit of simplifying these kinds of concepts. Let me try again. Basically, what he's saying is that contemporary art, they make a show of art by using things that are quote unquote mundane or everyday. Like they try to turn that into art, but it's like ironic because it's already mundane. And it's almost like the whole meta irony thing that goes on a lot nowadays, where we This is just better for me to explain as I read it. But basically, saying that contemporary art, they've kind of run out of a lot of good ideas, and they're tired of the whole, like, let's make everything spectacular and unrealistically gorgeous, aesthetically wild kind of thing. So they're just going to focus on very simple, modest, what he calls banal, mundane things, except that they're kind of over glorifying the mundanity, where they're excessively emphasizing it, but for the sake of emphasizing mundanity, and it's actually just kind of like, it's just mundane. It's not. I'm gonna do a better job of explaining as I read, I think, but that is kind of the idea of what he's trying to say. So let's get right into that. And also, I do think it's good to add now that what he mentions about the whole art being mundane thing, if we want to relate it to more like our days, our contemporary notion of art, I do think social media and content is a big part of this issue. And we have a lot of questions about, is YouTube content, is this really art? And if we were some film snob, cinema academic, we'd be like, no, this is all just stuff you can make at home with your little video cameras and your little laptops. It doesn't require enough, thought or effort to be art. There are people who might say that. I don't know if those people actually exist. They probably do. And then there are people who, are like, no, this is like totally a legitimate form of art. Like TikTok is a form of art. Instagram. Obviously, there are different camps and people who kind of fall in gradients between these camps. I don't think they're illegitimate forms of art. I do think like it's creative work. And as a creator, I can no longer like laugh at or scoff at or disrespect other people who have creative endeavors, no matter what their platform is. I'll be honest, from day to day, with my friends who are kind of millennials or older, we joke about TikTok. I mean, some of them use TikTok, and I don't judge anyone for using or creating on TikTok. It's just like not a form that works really for me. I just never enjoyed short form content in general. People say I sound really old when I say this, but all the moving images hurt my head. Like they give me kind of a bit of a migraine. I don't look at reels either. At least on Instagram, like I can just look at images and they're like perfectly still. And like I can sort of take my time and decide how much to invest. Whereas with a video, like I have to watch the whole thing. It's different from like a YouTube video where I can just skip to the parts that I want. With a short, it's like it's too short to skip anything. So you just end up having to be invested in all of it. Anyways, let's get into the text because we've talked a lot and this was not even the meat of this video. Like this is just a precursor. The Conspiracy of Art by Jean Baudrillard, very short essay. He starts out with this suggestion or notion that contemporary art has lost the desire of illusion. And I think in his view, now some of you might say, well, that's just like a stuck-up posh view of art. His argument has a point in that, like in art, there is, I guess, like a mystery. We want to find meaning in a piece of art. We don't want it to just be like scenery. And he talks about the hyper-reality of the image. And we talked about hyper-realism before in my social media video. Hyper-reality is basically just something that's excessively real, or it takes something real and exaggerates it so much that it no longer really feels real. It's not really that important in this discussion. But he says that art, which has also lost a desire for illusion and instead raises everything to aesthetic banality, becoming trans-aesthetic. In that case, he just means like it's transcending the idea of being aesthetic. Wow, I'm doing a really bad job of explaining. Basically, he's saying it's trying to create this illusion that there's a meaning behind art that seems pretty banal. Like you look at a piece of art and you're like, oh my gosh, this is so simple. It looks like it's meaningless. But as a viewer, you're like, no, it has to mean something. It's art. It's already defined as art. It's placed in an art gallery and it's created by someone famous. Like someone was commissioned to or paid to make this, or they just decided to make this on their own. And if it's from an artist, like it has to mean something, right? Even if it's just like a black square on a piece of paper. I don't know. That's kind of the idea of what he's trying to say in terms of like there's always an illusion or a mystery in an artwork where there's an overt visual aesthetic, of course, but then there's a hidden meaning underneath. And he's saying that this hidden meaning sort of becomes null or meaningless because I'm trying to create the illusion that the meaning is there by acting as if there's no meaning. Let me go further. I'm just gonna read some quotes from this guy because I love the way this guy talks. He says, maybe we're just acting out the comedy of art, just as other societies acted out the comedy of ideology, just as Italian society, though it is not alone, keeps acting out the comedy of power. We have this concept or notion of what art is supposed to be. It's supposed to be meaningful. It's supposed to grab your attention but make you also think. In order to sort of perpetuate this notion in the world of art, we're trying to decide, okay, what forms of art can we make to make people believe that this is still true? And that's where the whole contemporary art thing comes from. And he says, as for art, it is too superficial to be truly null and void. There must be some underlying mystery. But what could art possibly mean in a world that has already become hyper-realist, cool, transparent, marketable? And this is talking in the 1990s. And honestly, it applies to now really too, where the idea of the commercialization of art is just so huge. Art is, it's not just about something that looks pretty or sounds good. It has to make money, it has to sell. And in order to sell, you need to think about, well, what does the market want? What do consumers want? What kind of art are people drawn to? All it can do is make a final paradoxical wink, the wink of reality laughing at itself in its most hyper-realist form, of art laughing at itself and at its own disappearance in its most artificial form, irony. In any case, the dictatorship of images is an ironic dictatorship. In this irony discussion, I think a lot about YouTubers who kind of parody other YouTubers. Like I saw one where it was like a very direct parody of like film video analysis or video essayists. And so it's basically making fun of another form of art or form of creators' work, kind of being like, oh, we all know that this is the kind of formula that works. This is a formula that all creators of this kind follow. And I mean, like, I watched it and it was funny and it was true. And I understand it because I also am a video essayist. And I can laugh at myself as an artist and be like, sometimes I do follow formulas. I do things that are marketable or commercially beneficial. I work with sponsors. I place ads. Even my speaking and my style and the way I edit, like it is all inspired by other creators. There is a bit of a cycle or a recycling of aesthetic forms, like the way we insert quotes, like the way we read quotes, the way we put the little captions, the way we start off a video with like a really dramatic intro or like a clip from like a really famous movie. All the aesthetic forms of the art itself or the creation, he's saying in contemporary art, it's a way of sort of mocking ourselves. It's a way of mocking the kind of grand, lofty notion of art that's been used in the past, like turning that mockery, I guess, into a form of art. And I think we still do that today. We have a lot of parodies. We have a lot of comedic content that honestly just kind of makes fun of other kinds of content that already existed, which either was good in its own right or not very good. How can we even judge really what is good? And again, that brings into the whole question of, is art subjective or objective? And then we have to get into the whole idea of beauty. What is aesthetic beauty? Is that subjective? And we're not going to go there because we have a lot to cover in this text alone. It talks about insider trading, the secret business or commercial world of art. If you are a creator like me, if you make YouTube videos, you know the insider trading. You know what goes on. You know the kinds of efforts we have to make. You know kind of compromises we have to make in order to, okay, I need to include this sponsorship because like otherwise I'm not going to get paid enough for this video and I'm not going to have a living. So I need to find a way to make this video appealing for certain audiences. I need to find a way to use the title and the cover art to catch people's attention. Even if it's not exactly the form or aesthetic that I want to make, we have to cater somehow to our audience. And that's true in most forms of art, even writing, in the literary world. If you're super talented, if you're like an amazing writer, you're probably going to sell your book at some point, but your story has to be marketable first and foremost. It has to be popular in the current market. Same thing with films and TV shows. And we have this sort of fantasy illusion that if you're an indie short filmmaker, you can just kind of pour out your soul into all these short films about meaningful messages about life. Go to Sundance. In a way, if you really want to be successful in the industry commercially, if you want to actually make a living out of your works of art, then you have to think about what the market wants. And this is a general wrestle battle between artists, creators, and the industry itself. So let's keep going. This irony itself is no longer part of the accursed share. It now belongs to insider trading, the shameful and hidden complicity binding the artist who uses his or her aura of derision against the bewildered and doubtful masses. Irony is also part of the conspiracy of art. So when he talks about conspiracy of art, he's talking about contemporary art specifically, and he's saying that right now what art is doing is it's using derision, it's using kind of satire and a mockery of art, I guess, in itself, or the popular notion of art in order to create art itself. And like that is the genre of art today. And then he continues to say, as long as art was making use of its own disappearance and the disappearance of its object, it still was a major enterprise. But art trying to recycle itself indefinitely by storming reality, the majority of contemporary art has attempted to do precisely that by confiscating banality, waste, and mediocrity as values and ideologies. What is he saying? Pretty hard to interpret. Actually, no, it's harder to explain than to interpret because I understand what he's saying. I just don't know how to put it in other words. Let me just continue reading. Raising originality, banality, and nullity to the level of values or even to perverse aesthetic pleasure. Of course, all this mediocrity claims to transcend itself by moving art to a second ironic level, but it is just as empty and insignificant on the second as the first level. The passage to the aesthetic level salvages nothing. On the contrary, it is mediocrity squared. I love that line. It claims to be null. I am null. I am null. And it truly is null. So just imagine an artist who, and I don't know what goes on behind artists' minds, obviously. Just imagine an artist who puts out, we'll go with a black square on a piece of canvas. And the whole concept is to sort of scream to the viewers or to scream to the audience that this work means nothing. And it actually means nothing because the point of the work is to mean nothing. That's kind of the point. It is in itself a sort of a derision of, I guess, artists who try to put too much meaning into work or artists who don't put any meaning into their work. But I don't really know if any art comes out of things that don't have meaning. And then it says, therein lies all the duplicity of contemporary art, asserting nullity, insignificance, meaninglessness, striving for nullity when already null and void, striving for emptiness when already empty, claiming superficiality in superficial terms. And then there are inside traders, the counterfeiters of nullity, the snobs of nullity, of all those who prostitute nothingness to value, who prostitute evil for useful ends. Okay, hold on. Basically, there are artists who actually truly give out works of art that are empty in meaning. And here's where he really hammers a point, how this kind of art can kind of trick viewers or trick audiences into thinking that has to be some meaning behind a work of art. And he says this insider trading is not just an art issue, it's in economics, it's in politics. It's about convincing the masses that there is some kind of greater meaning or value behind an idea, a concept, a notion. Most of us are just kind of mass consumers. We are not very highly educated or trained on what art or high art or culture is. And so we see a work of art that someone made, like, let's say, like a really famous movie from, we'll use Sundance. Let's not use, like, the Oscars, because, the Oscars. Let's say there's a movie from Sundance, or the Cannes. Let's use Cannes. We see this, like, gorgeous film, but it's, like, I don't know, it's got like the most boring, mundane story. But the visuals are fantastic, but it's just like very simple. And it seems like it's supposed to be loaded with meaning because it's so empty and it's so vague and unclear. But we go into it thinking, this must have meaning. These guys are like, they know what they're doing. These are like film geniuses. And these people are of this artistic world that I'm not part of. So clearly I'm the one who's not understanding. And, they say art is in the eye of the beholder. It's about interpretation. It's about connection with society. And I think that is honestly why a lot of people enjoy art forms now on social media, because in a way it seems relatable, it seems understandable, and it goes beyond this idea of art is so much for the uppity snobs of the art world. And there is a commercial aspect to it all because this simplicity is actually something that in the modern world a lot of people preferred. They didn't want these ostentatious paintings full of what seemed like no meaning or empty meaning. In a way, I feel like contemporary art almost like it does create a mystery, but maybe like he's saying there's an illusion of mystery. Like we think that it's so deep and unique. And in terms of applying it to our modern day films, books, art, music, I don't always think vagueness is like the most artistic thing anymore. I used to love vagueness. Like, I used to think vagueness was like so superior, and like even in my writing I had such bad habits of being vague, because to me writing anything clearly for the audience to understand fully seemed, well, it seemed like it was underestimating the reader for one thing, but it also just seemed very unartistic. It seemed very like plain, very straightforward. Like, it seemed like I was writing an essay. I'm trying to practice more clarity in my writing and a little more like, I want people to fully understand. Like, I want people to understand, even if it is intuitively, what I'm trying to say. And there is such a balance between message and theme, but also just overall story and aesthetics when it comes to different forms of art. But overall, even on YouTube, and I thought a lot about the whole Gen Z idea of meta irony, how I think a lot of content now on YouTube, and I can say this for myself as well, it sort of targets other content on YouTube, or targets really anything. I do think we are able to have a critical eye in one sense, but it's like, I don't know if it's criticism that's efficient or always the most helpful. I don't think criticism is very constructive if it doesn't really lead to change, and I don't really like doing anything that's inconstructive or inefficient. And honestly, I don't even like just doing these rants for the sake of ranting, but I don't feel like I have another space to rant like this. And I don't know if YouTube is something I want to continue with, because there's always that struggle between the commercial world and the idea of success behind being a creator. And part of it is, yes, to, reach audiences through algorithms, through popular topics. And that's kind of the stuff they teach you when you try to learn about being on social media. And like, I just want to talk about things I want to talk about. But for some people, like, I do think it works. But for a lot of people, I don't know. I just feel like as you get more successful and you realize what works for your audience, even your preferences and what you want to talk about changes, and it sort of adapts to your audience and the algorithm. And so I do feel like there is a sort of interdependent eco relationship. What's that called? Ecology? Symbiotic relationship between me and my audience, YouTube in general, you guys. And so I don't really ever think it can be one-sided. And quite honestly, like I said, there's a lot of other things I want to focus on right now, but I feel like I need to at least say all of this and to go through this text and to think about and reflect on some of the things that he says about art. I don't know, this whole idea of the everyday, the mundane, the mediocre, and kind of embracing it, being like, hey, this is art now, this is all okay, everything's art, and this is what I want to focus on. I don't know if that's in a way like giving up on other richer forms of art. And I don't know if it's like compromise or surrender to what people want to see, and a lot of it is related to the commercial aspect. There's a lot of content where people really do want to see what you're using and what you're wearing and where you live, and they want to see all the material stuff. And, is it like, do I want to use that in my art? Is that the kind of creation I want to make? And is it empty? Is it mediocrity squared? And do I really hold any value or meaning in the things that I make on YouTube or Instagram? I don't know. This idea that we can use whatever is sort of popular, whatever aesthetic concept or design on YouTube is what will sell, what will get me to rise. And honestly, even making this video essays, like, they're a very popular thing now. And there are ways I could make myself more successful through this medium. And I guess I just have to be more strategic, like just kind of, have a cold heart and go for it if this is what I want to do. I just don't know. And I don't know if the world of art and the world of commercialism can ever be untied. I mean, even back in the Renaissance days, like, artists, they worked for commission, they worked for kings and royalty, like Michelangelo and Da Vinci. Like, these guys were geniuses and they were super talented, but it didn't mean they could just create art in this empty void. There still had to be an audience. There had to be people to appreciate it. And that is what I want. I do want people to connect with my art and to appreciate it. So I don't think I can do this in isolation. And YouTube is a place that is so community oriented that maybe honestly it just kind of scares me. I love community. I love people, but it's like I already have so many other communities and people around me to focus on that I don't really have the time or investment to focus on my YouTube community. And I just feel like that's a big part for creators as well, to be engaged. I don't like social media engagement. People think I do. People think I love social media. I really don't. It's just like a convenient platform for me to put out works of art. I think maybe I just need like a manager or something, someone to deal with all this stuff. Anyways, so that's my spiel for the day. I didn't give much text analysis today because it is a bit of a complicated concept and it doesn't necessarily apply like Baudrillard's idea that modern art is this conspiracy, because it's just like recycling ideas of what art they think art is, enforcing that as a legitimate art onto people, unsuspecting thespians, by trying to convince them that this is art, and by sort of mocking themselves as artists. And like, you know, watching those like parody video essays just makes me think like, am I overthinking all this? Am I just like trying to do too much? Are video essays just snobby? Am I just a snob? And it just makes me spiral. So anyways, since there wasn't as much textual analysis, I encourage you guys to go read the essay. It's pretty short. And just think about it. Just think about the quotes. I love the quotes. Maybe that's just my own love of superficial, aesthetically pleasing words and language. Maybe I'm just in love with the language he uses and not with the concepts themselves. This is getting too meta. But yeah, I just wanted to wrestle with some of those thoughts with you guys. This is going to be a very long video. But yeah, thanks for sticking it out with me. And I know you guys have been wanting a video more like this. I hope this is a space where we can ask questions and just kind of wrestle with them, not necessarily just me spitting out information at you. Because to be honest, I really don't have that much information. Like I'm not a huge research person, guys, and I'm a verbal processor, so I have to think in the moment. If I try to write out a script, like honestly, I'm not even going to follow it. Think about it, guys. Think about what art means to you, what forms of art you connect with, what you feel about content on social media. Do you feel like, is it worth your time to make? Is it worth your time to watch? Is it enjoyable? And is that enough to be a form of art and to continue in this passion? Yeah, I don't know. I really don't know. Okay. Bye.